this will probably offend some people, but just a weak male leadership in the relationship where they're not providing the energy and the resilience, and whether they're actually, because I'm not leading my business, but I'm still leading my spouse and leading my family. And that's where I see these fail, is when the man's not stepping up to take care of that situation.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kuyfer, and today I am joined by Matt Kuyper, who is the co-owner of Harpeth Painting with his wife, Maggie. And today we are going to be talking about working in business with your spouse. But I love the way that Matt phrased this as far as the topic. It's staying blissfully married to your spouse while working together. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. He and Maggie have many years under their belt, and they're running a very successful painting business. And I always, as many of you know, I run Boolean with my wife, and I'm a huge, I'm a big fan. We'll talk about this more, but I'm a big fan, being living in it, of just the joy that you get to spend so much time collaborating, arguing, fighting, in working to build something with someone that you love so much as your spouse. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming on today to talk about this.
Yeah, this is great. This is one of my favorite topics because it's challenging, but it's also rewarding at the same time.
Yes. So give us a rundown on the Kuypers and what you're doing over at Harpeth Painting, when it got going and all that.
Yeah. So kind of the quick story of it is I've always been in the construction and painting world since I was a kid. Got into the painting world about 8 years ago, started Harpeth Painting. Maggie was my partner in that from day one, but we really didn't know exactly what her role was going to be. She had a background in education and sports administration. So she had a lot of leadership skills, but no painting background. And as the business grew from just the, hey, I'm the one doing the bids, I'm the one starting the crews, I'm the everything person, I realized I needed a different skill set, more of a partner in this, a leader of people. So she kind of came in the typical way a spouse does in most scenarios, of doing some of the back end work, doing job costing. I think most people can relate to that. And very quickly realized she was capable of more. So started doing some estimates, started learning how to bid jobs. And before you know it, 4 years later, she's running the show. So I've turned over operational leadership of the business to her. So it's been a fun transition where it kind of, that X curve graph where we kind of transitioned over each other.
And then what is your, which part of the business do you own, or procedures or whatever?
Yeah, so I still have a lot of day-to-day hands-on in our new commercial division, so all the commercial construction. But I have a very small team that I lead in that. And then I have kind of overall vision and projection for company growth, but very little day-to-day operational CEO type roles. She's much better than I am.
Yeah. And have you guys done any working genius type or personality assessments, things like that?
Yeah. So working genius, funny that you bring that up, because that's our favorite one. Our whole team, a lot of our lead painters have done that assessment, and that's one that we really find valuable because it's all about how you work together, where you fit in the organization. We've also done the DISC, and we're kind of big on Enneagram stuff personally. But yeah, any of those assessments are really special.
Would you know off the cuff what you are from Working Genius and what Maggie is?
Yeah, so I'm Wonder and put me on the spot.
Yeah, it's wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity.
Yeah, wonder and discernment are
okay.
My two.
Dude, that's a good combo.
Yeah, which is great for being kind of the visionary and startup guy in the company, because I can see something, but I can also say I can make a decision quick on it and make it work, figure out how to proceed with it, whether it was the right thing or not. Mm-hmm. We're going with. And Maggie is much more of a galvanizer. She I would say, you know, I know it's the two, but that's really where I see her. It's that coach mentality that she had, where it's like, let's get the team on board. Let's make everybody fulfilled in what they're doing. Everybody knows how they win. That's her strength.
Yeah. I was going to say mine is wonder and invention.
Ooh,
And Natalie is tenacity and um, I think it's enablement and tenacity. But we did this assessment with our whole team and realized that we didn't have anyone that was discernment. And then
you weren't
then
getting
we
anything done, were you?
no, we were just we had so many ideas, just ideas coming out for days, and we'd start everything and finish
Yeah.
near nothing. So, yeah, it's just though I love assessments like that because it's just like I even once I like had this data, there's so many things that at least for me, I thought that things my like default mode of operating was just like normal, like everybody is just that's how you think. And you start realizing, wait, not everybody, you're kidding me, like not everyone does that. Because then it explained like I'd be in about my previous job, I'd be in like a brainstorming meeting for I was a marketing director for a painting company, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to get leads during winter. And we bring in the sales team, the overhead, the production like leaders, and we're in this brainstorming meeting, and I've got like just idea after idea after idea, and it's like a lot of them are bad, but I'm just like, you want ideas? I got tons, 100 of them, just throwing them out. And it's like, how have you not come up with a single, not even like, just give me a horrible idea, you can't even give me one. And then it's like, oh, it's because I'm wonder and invention, and it's just like it's easy. But then there's other people that just they get labeled as like the naysayer, and maybe they're the ones that are actually like trying to poke holes and discern. And if you're not aware of those differences, you can get frustrated instead of being like, oh, this is actually we're making a good team here because we need people that can generate ideas and other people to like flush them out and break it into a plan and anyway. So yeah, I feel like those things are very helpful, especially when you come back to with your spouse, because it's like work. At least this is how it is for us. When we go on a date, it's just like a partially government funded
Yeah. Yeah.
interaction with your spouse. And we've tried to have different times of our marriage. We've had putting more focus on like, all right, let's not talk about work. But the reality is we both enjoy it, and it's like we're doing something that we're passionate about. And so it's just kind of like a blended together existence in my mind. And it doesn't feel, I guess I should check in with Natalie and see if she still agrees with this, but it doesn't feel like it's like out of balance. It just feels like it's just something that we're both passionate about. I don't know if that is similar for you guys or how you've dealt with that.
Yeah, pretty much the same. And I'd say going back to the working genius thing too, of it gave me good perspective when we're talking about this stuff at night, or she brings up problems or wants to just vent. Like I start using my discernment and tell her like, this is what you should do, like giving her the answers right away, because in my mind, it's simple. Just do this. And she's not wanting that. She's just wanting to explain, process. And so understanding the different personality types there has been helpful in just the marriage discussions too.
Mm. Yeah, totally. And what were you going to say about the like how do you guys balance living and like, and you have kids, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So being parents, spouses, and business owners.
So we're a lot like you in the fact that we enjoy talking about work on our date nights. So a lot of times it's synonymous, like, hey, you want to go out and grab drinks tonight? You want to go out? And that means like, let's go out to talk work, unless we're going out with another couple or something like that. And we have, in the summers, especially, we call it porch night. We got a nice screened in porch on the back of our house, and we'll set the kids inside and let them watch TV or a movie, and we'll go out and talk life, which for us a lot of times is work.
Right.
But it's understanding what you're actually wanting to talk about at that time. Like we're very intentional. Like, hey, do you want to talk about work, or is there something else you want to talk about? Not just always defaulting into the work conversation. But so much of it is all kids, work, life, school. You can't really, when you're working with your spouse, you can't untangle that. I don't think it's healthy to completely separate those things.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but one of the way and this is an evolution of how I think about it. But for example, the PCA, um, like we schedule our vacations as a family around these like industry events. So when the
Yeah.
PCA was in Orlando, and then we had another big conference, a painting conference that we were going to that was like a month, and it was like 5 weeks later over in South Carolina. And so we basically planned a trip, and stayed in Airbnbs. So we took our whole family down. We hired a babysitter through a local friend that we knew that was in Orlando. So our kids were like hanging out in the hotel when we were at the conference. And then we got done with the conference, and then we went to Disney World for several days. And then we went on this like road trip for 3 or 4 weeks, went to the Kennedy Space Center and stuff. And then we hit the last conference. So anyways, it's like, to me, it's like the way I look at business is we agree on what we're trying to create in life. And then the business is just a vehicle to provide, especially when you're the owners, you create the most flexibility, and you like, if you want to do something, then create the structure to enable that to happen. And that's one thing that's been really, really cool, especially having both of us in the business. You can use these, just strategize. How do we make both of these things coexist? And it's oftentimes when I tell people, they're like, what? Like, and they, especially people that are not business owners, it just doesn't compute. Like, why would you go on vacation and while you're working, and it's like, no, we're just like literally trying to strategize. How can we make as much of this a business expense as we can? And then also have this amazing vacation with our family in between. So
We have a really funny story about that. It was, I guess, 2 summers ago. So back into the story, one of our project managers, actually our first project manager, was our nanny before we hired her into the company. So she was with our kids all the time, was really close to our family. And we were going up to one of Nick's Ask a Painter summer retreats in northern Minnesota, and wanted to take our kids up there to Minneapolis. That's where Maggie's from. So we loaded up Lucy, our old nanny, who's now a PM, our kids, visited with Nick and his family for a couple of days. She got to shadow some of his operation. They flew back, and Maggie and I went on the retreat. It's like we got everything.
that's awesome.
One trip.
And yeah, and that's the thing, is that you have that freedom even more so than just a regular business owner, when both of you are oftentimes needed at different meetings or conferences or whatever.
So that's an interesting thing to bring up. I have a lot of friends whose wives are either stay at home or part time, or totally in a totally separate career than their husband, and it brings its own set of challenges with a little bit of um, envy and I don't know, like if the husband is traveling all the time for work, the wife can get, or vice versa. I'm using gender roles here, but the one who travels can kind of get a bad rap for always being gone. And the downside of us is we have to travel together, so we got to find childcare and all that stuff. But there's pros and cons to each arrangement, I guess is what I'm trying to say. One's not better than the other.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What other, like, if you were looking back at, because how long have you guys been married, and how long have you guys been running the business?
We've been married 18 years, and the business is 8 years.
And so if you were to give advice to, 10-year ago Matt, who was married and about to start this business, what would you like? What do you know now that you wish you did then?
Oh, it's way harder than I thought it would ever be. Business and marriage, both. You have to be so intentional and build your toolbox. You can't just wing it. And that toolbox is other couples who are more mature in their relationships. That's counselors, that's pastors, it's friends. It's really focusing on your relationship as something that's important and not letting it be just something that's secondhand. We've gone through these phases both in marriage and business, and if we didn't have those tool sets, like, it would be much more of a struggle.
Were there any like key inflection points, or like the biggest ahas or course corrections that stick out to you?
I think it's just understanding. It hasn't been one thing. It's been a lot of little things, but it's understanding where each other is at the certain time. Like I could be super stressed about something. She could be super stressed about another thing, and realizing it's not aligning as the downfall of our business. Like things are still okay, but it's just understanding where each other are at and being open to talking about that, not making assumptions of either their emotional state or the pain that they're going through at that time, and uncovering it and being vulnerable about it.
Yeah, I'm curious because I have like a small anecdote to share, and I'm curious if this is relevant or has happened with you guys. But talk to me about either coaching that you've gotten, or pay for, or counseling, or like, I mean, I feel like coaching and counseling oftentimes are very similar depending on who that person is that is you're paying to consult or help you navigate something. But how has that played a role in the past 10 years?
Yeah. So we both have done a lot of personal counseling, both for just, kind of performance mindset coaching, and business coaching. And then we did kind of an intensive 6 months of marriage counseling, actually before the business, so maybe 10 years ago. But again, that gave us a lot of the tools that we now use working together. And it's so hard to explain because it's something I see missing in so many couples, is that they don't know how to talk about the hard things without getting really upset at each other.
Mm.
And I don't know. It's been a lot of little steps that we've developed over the years. It's not one counselor that said, "Hey, do this," and everything's fixed. It's just being very intentional over time to understand how to relate and to talk to each other in times of stress.
What can you give me, like, the here's a very tactical tool that any couple could use regardless of whether you're married or not, but just like, what's a tool to have a hard conversation?
Yeah. This one's kind of cheesy, but I've been using it a lot more in the last 4 years, since I learned about it, is the whole, and I can't attribute it to the right person because I don't remember where it came from, but it's the whole theory of like, do you want to be helped, hugged, or heard? Or helped, heard, or hugged? So when Maggie's venting or something stressful, it's like sometimes she just wants to be heard. Sometimes she wants to be helped. And sometimes she just needs to be comforted. And literally asking those three things then opens up the context of what she's going through, or vice versa for me as well.
And so you guys basically, like, she starts talking, you're like, hold on, is this a helped, hugged, or heard? Which one do you
Yeah,
want?
we literally do that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's it's my younger self would have been like, oh, that's like cheating, you should know, like I don't need to tell you. But it's like like, as you get older, you just realize that so much of uh just being extremely like clear on this is what I need is just like better for both. And it's weird because you would think, or at least I used to think, that if I vocalize this is what I need, then all of a sudden it like doesn't mean as much coming from you because you're just doing it because that's what I asked you to do. And someone else pointed out to me, when you're talking to a counselor, uh, if you've ever gone to a counselor, like, does it not mean as much because you're paying them to listen to you?
Yeah.
Like, no, it still works. You're literally creating this counselor like box or frame and saying, I'm going to show up here and pay you to listen to me and like hear me out. It's like, and it works great. There's tons of a track record there. And I feel like it's the exact same thing. It's like, why not in so many areas of your life, whether it's with your kids or employees, to just say like, this is what I need, and make it black and white, because people want to do what people would like them to do.
Another one that's useful is the whole attachment theory. Theory, what do we call it? And Maggie, her biggest fear in that whole thing is like abandonment, and mine is fear of letting people down or failure. So I process a lot of things in my head. So when we're in a stressful situation, I'll just kind of distance myself, and she then is feeling abandoned, but I'm not doing that on purpose. So for her to come out and ask, like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Or me saying, like, hey, I just need to process this. Like, I'm not ignoring you or abandoning you, and vice versa for her to say, like, what you're doing is okay. Like, we're successful. This is working. Don't worry. Like, get out of your head. So understanding what your biggest internal fear is too, and addressing those verbally.
And what's the I don't know if I'm super familiar with attachment theory. So give me like a context of what it sounds like. It's similar to like a personality or like a identifying the key driver or something. Is that right?
So it was one of the things that we went through in our marriage counseling 10 years ago. So I don't remember a lot of the details, honestly, but that probably a quick Google search would bring up the theory.
But basically, what you do remember is that you identify what is the key fear that you have or type of fear.
There's way more to it than that, but that was kind of the big takeaway that we still use today.
Got it. Yeah, I was going to say that there's a one of the like a very again it feels a little cheesy if you haven't tried this, but someone gave us this. It's like it's technically, I guess you could say it's a game or it's an activity that you would do with your spouse, where it's called connection cards is the name of this. So it's like a deck of cards,
Yeah, I've heard of
and
this.
it's a bunch of questions that are like, what's your ideal vacation spot, or tell me about a time that you were really sad, or whatever. Like there's a bunch of just things so you get to go pick one of these, and then whoever is getting asked the question, um, they get to answer, and the person that's asking it is given a response card that has, I think it's 5 responses, and that's all you're allowed to say. So if
Oh,
I
wow. So
ask,
not open ended.
no, but and that's where I first, when someone told me about this, like, this is so dumb. Like, I'm going to go on a date, and so we'll do this. Like, especially if it's like there have been times where it's a high stress or there's a lot of tension because of stuff that's happened in life, and so we're like, all right, we need to go on a date, and we're going to bring the connection cards, because normally we would not talk about, like, they would just be so hard to drag stuff out of each other, and in this, it's like, tell me about a time that you were really excited, and or why was that? And so they'll tell you, and then your responses are like, tell me more. Where else does that show up in your life? Is there anything else? And it's 5 questions, and so that's literally all. You're not allowed to elaborate. You're just say, tell me more about that. And then
Oh, that's cool.
and so you do this, and you just go back and forth, usually even after like 2 or 3 questions each. It's like a completely, they ask you at the beginning to check in, like on a scale from 10 to -10, like how connected do you feel? And then at the end you do it again. And it's just like, and that's like where the counseling thing is. It's unbelievable how, if you're genuinely engaged in the conversation and you're actually listening, even if because Natalie was joking around with me that when I would ask my response question, I'd just be like, tell me more. And she's like, can you like try to pretend like you're actually asking the question? But even with my monotone response, and I'm like, she can see that I'm listening and I'm hearing her out, you feel like there's like stuff that you would normally want to fill in. But the number of times that get asked, like, what the realization for me was, so often in our marriage, we get asked questions or things come up and we have something to say. So we just respond, and then someone else jumps in and the conversation's gone, and that was it. But very rare do you pause and just like really go deep into something like that. So you're just like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And you could talk for 10 minutes about one question. And then it's like, wow, I didn't even know that I had that much to say about that thing. And the only reason we got there was because there were these constraints that said, like, you're basically allowing the person to like just talk it out until there's nothing else to say. And then you move to the next question.
That's fun. I'm going to have to check those out. I've heard about other things, but not that specifically.
Yeah. So yeah, what else, what are the other things that you enjoy talking to or sharing, in regards to how to how to have a successful marriage and business together?
I think knowing where I've specifically asked my team this. I don't want it to be confusing from a leadership standpoint in our company of like, hey, if I go to Matt, I'm going to get this answer. If I go to Maggie, I'm going to get this answer. Of really telling our team, like, the board is Matt and Maggie. Maggie's the CEO. Matt's the director of commercial construction. So there's a hierarchy. Like if it's a board question, it's going to be answered by both of us. If it's a CEO question, it's going to be answered by Maggie in a certain way. If it's a director level question, it's going to be answered by me. So being very clear in the leadership structure of your business, that it's hard to just be like, Matt and Maggie are the owners. The owners, like, owners can't answer as two people. You have to understand that it's separate and making that clear.
That's interesting. How many other directors? So you have you two are the owners, and then she's the CEO, and then how many directors are there?
We have a director of operations and a director of direct to owner residential. So 3 of us really.
And you're on the commercial side?
Yep.
Got it. That's awesome. Yeah. Any other advice or tactics? I really like the specific examples that you gave. If you have more of those.
Well, let me think. It's really hard to take a vacation.
What do you guys do about that?
It's
or I guess first define vacation.
Like when we go away to truly disconnect with the family, it's hard because 2 levels of leadership just left the business.
So you're not, it's more of like logistically in the business, it's hard to leave. But like if there was a magic wand to take care of the business, you wouldn't have a hard time enjoying a vacation.
No. So it's easy for her to leave. It's easy for me to leave because we can kind of backfill each other's spots or prep the team. But when we both leave at the same time, it can create a challenge, and we're trying to work through that, kind of the redundancy of things that don't need to run through us, and just creates a little bit of a, like, we want to do more things with just our family where we're not having to work while we're away. So that's kind of the next year to 3 years is kind of the thing that we're working on, is being able to both of us disconnect at the same time.
Yeah.
So
that makes a ton of sense.
That's not a solution. That's a problem, but that's something to be aware of in these spousal business relationships.
Yeah. What is the aspect that you enjoy, like in business? What is how often do you talk to people that are considering starting a business and are worried or afraid to do it because of either going into business with family or their spouse?
I think most people I talk to say right off the bat, I could never do that. You're stupid for doing that. That's crazy. I could never work with my wife. I hear that 9 times out of 10. And the people that don't say that are the ones that are already working together. So there's very few people that I've run into that are asking about getting into it. They either are already doing it or say they would never do it. Do you see that too?
I agree with you, but I do think that there's there's this theory that what's it called? There's a really good TED talk about in World War II. So you're going to be like, this has nothing to do with my question, but there's a purpose. You could use this analogy in business because it's really good. And in World War II, the U.S. was having, there's a lot of battles over the water and the ocean, and planes were getting shot down. And so planes would come back, and anytime a plane would come back, they were making maps of all the places that the plane had had bullet holes in it.
It's a great
story. You're looking at all of the places where there's bullet holes, and they were like, all right, this is where the plane is getting hit, so we need to reinforce these parts of the plane. And it's like the wing, and there's very few bullet holes that were in like the main part where like the gas or the engine or the cockpit is. So they at first glance, you're like, oh, like for some reason there's no bullet holes here, so let's reinforce everything else. but you have to realize that you're only getting to look at the sample of the planes that made it back, not the ones that didn't. So you actually need to look at the map and then do the inverse of what you see. So for like, it's okay for the plane to get shot in the wing a bunch, but you need to reinforce the gas tank or the cockpit, because those planes, none of them came back. So to me, I always think, like, with the idea of business, it's like, you presumably are in a place where you're interacting with a lot of other businesses that have reached some level of success. And there's probably, like the statistics of how many businesses fail, hundreds of people that like attempted to start a business with, whether it's their spouse or anyone, and they just didn't make it anywhere. And so they're not going to conferences. They're not pushing to try and grow and scale. But that would be my black hat of like, yes, I do feel like when I go to conferences, I see all these couples that are happily married and running successful businesses. But then there's the thought of like,
Yeah.
but who's
They're
not
not going to be at
here?
the conference. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe that's why they're unsuccessful, because they're not at the conference investing in themselves and
Yeah.
learning. It's a circular.
Attribution theory,
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I do see in the couples that aren't successful is I don't see a strong yet humble male leadership side of it. It seems to be, this will probably offend some people, but just a weak male leadership in the relationship, where they're not providing the energy and the resilience, and whether they're actually, because I'm not leading my business, but I'm still leading my spouse and leading my family. And that's where I see these fail, is when the man's not stepping up to take care of that situation.
Mm. I am. That's actually an interesting tangent into. I know you're a CrossFitter. How do you feel like, or is there like figuratively being a strong leader, and as a man also like pushing your fitness and health to physically be strong?
I think they're hard to separate. You look at even the most successful billionaires, the Larry Ellisons and the Larry Page, all these guys have a fitness routine. Like, there's nobody, very few, that aren't taking care of their body and their mind before they're successful in their relationships and in their work. I think you can't really have one without the other, at least in the long term. There's probably times in business where you need to grind and not work out and not value your mental health as much, but you can't do that for forever.
Tell me about, what is your workout routine, or like, how have you balanced as a couple, and I guess you probably, what are your ages of your kids?
13, 9, and 6.
Okay. So you've got a built-in babysitter at this point, but
We're close, yeah.
you're at the place of, like, obviously, it's critical to work out. But if you're trying to support Maggie and her also getting her workout time in, that's one thing that's been a struggle for Natalie and I, because we have 7, 5, 3, and 1. And so they're like, it's just tough we can't both go to the same class, or like we have to figure out our schedules to make that work.
So we've had many different phases in this as the kids have been different ages. But one thing we do is we literally calendar sync our workouts on Sunday evening, when we're big proponents of the family meeting template that Jason Paris implemented a few years ago. So we do that with the family, and everybody's calendars get synced up for the week. But I have the blessing of being able to take the kids to school every day. So Maggie will usually work out in the morning earlier, or during that drop-off time. I'll drop the kids off and then go hit an 8 o'clock class, because I can start my day a little bit later. And then, that's how it's working now. But it used to be like, hey, I got to squeeze in 45 minutes at the Y whenever I can get it. Like, I couldn't go to a CrossFit class for a while because it was just,
Too
didn't
rigid.
know when you're going to be. Yeah. Just had to have flexibility that, hey, today I'm going to work out at 1:30 in the afternoon. Tomorrow I'm going to work out at 5:30 in the morning. Like, just wherever it could fit. But we always made it a priority.
Yeah.
And making sure that one can support the other. because we really can't do it at the same time right now.
And
Hopefully
do you guys
soon.
both do CrossFit?
She's not anymore. She's gotten really into tennis the last couple of years. So she's been primarily doing tennis, and then she does another group fitness class around here called Shed. I don't know if it's a national chain or not, but
Okay.
it's kind of like a CrossFit without barbells.
Yeah. That's awesome. So wrap up questions. 3 book recommendations.
I could give, it's funny, I'll do this quick, but I listed out all the books I read in the last 4 years, and it was like 300 and something books. So when you actually listed it out, it was a lot. But Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, one of my favorites. I'm sure most people have heard of or read that one. I'm currently about halfway through with Radical Candor, I think by Kim Scott. That's a fantastic book. I wish I would have read that years ago. And then I really liked the Silo series as far as fiction goes.
Silo? Tell me about, what is that?
It's like a future. They made an Apple TV show out of it. It's like a 3-book series, dystopian future, nuclear war kind of sci-fi book. I don't read a lot of fiction, and that one was just, I hammered through all 3 books.
And it is a movie, or it's a TV show now?
They made it into a TV show on Apple TV, which I have not watched because the book was so good.
Okay.
I hate to see the show ruin it.
It's got an 8.1 on IMDb, which is pretty good for a show.
It's pretty good.
It's crazy. Yeah. Have you seen the show Severance?
No, but I've heard about it.
Because that's we've only watched the first season, my wife and I, but it's kind of an interesting, what's the word, antonym for what we're talking about with work and life and spouse and stuff. And you have like this, basically you have your home life. And then when you go to work, your memories are all spatially dependent. So you have no memory of anything outside of work. And then when you're at home, you have no memory of anything outside of home. So it's a really, it's such an exaggerated storyline that's like clearly that's not possible. But at the same time, there's so many like overlaps. It's like when you take anything in real life and make a joke of it and like exaggerate it to make a point. It's like, ooh, there's a lot of like, overlap or similarities in our work culture that we have in the world. And I guess shifting right into movie or show, do you have a movie or show recommendation?
You asked me earlier if it was unique or something off brand, and I just don't get to watch that much cool stuff with kids my age. So the best thing I've watched in the last year is Landman. I mean, I loved that show.
Landman. I haven't, with Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob, yeah, it's so good.
I have not seen this one. Oh, it's a TV series.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's got an 8.2. That's another great rating.
It was phenomenal. Billy Bob is just incredible in that role. You believe everything he's doing.
That's awesome. And if someone wants to get in touch with you, how do you recommend that they do that?
Best way probably is DM me on social media, Matt Kuyper at Instagram or Harpeth Painting, either one, and then I'll typically transition you over to email from there. But find me on the socials.
Awesome.
I try to be as active as possible.
Well, Matt, I really appreciate the time in coming on to discuss this. And I always like connecting with other fellow couples that are pursuing greatness in the business world. So it's fun.
I appreciate you giving an outlet for this topic.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kuyfer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskuyfer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.